to give all of you a quick breakdown of everything I've learned about private healthcare in the UK and how it functions here. My name is Vikram, and I'm sorry I couldn't be there with you guys today, but here's my presentation. So, to start off with, what is private healthcare? Well, in the UK, private healthcare operates alongside the NHS as an alternative and a faster way to access personalized care and any healthcare that you might need. Unlike the NHS, private healthcare offers the medical services for a fee, which can be paid for either through your savings, which is like out of pocket, or you could have a private medical insurance, which can help you pay either entirely or for part of the expenses you incur while utilizing the medical services. Some common private healthcare providers in the UK include Nuffield Health, which is where I was fortunate enough to work. Another common one is Spire Health, which has a center here in Nottingham as well. There's also other providers like HCA Healthcare and BMI Healthcare. So, what services do these healthcare providers provide? Well, it depends from location to location, but there's a wide range of services that they can provide, which include simple GP consultations to specialist consultations alongside diagnostic tests and imaging. You can also have elective surgeries. You can receive medicines and treatment, for example, for cancer or for something as simple as an infection. They also tend to have wellness and lifestyle services and many more things like psychiatric help and basically everything that the NHS can provide, the private healthcare facilitators can provide as well. So, who uses private healthcare? Well, according to one study that I found, approximately a third of the UK population will use private health services at some point in their life, which comes as quite a surprise to me because I thought that private healthcare was something which was reserved for the very rich or people who had the funds to utilize these services. But as I will go along, I'll hopefully show you guys that it can really range, and there's all sorts of people who do end up using private healthcare. In fact, ever since the COVID-19 pandemic, there has been a drastic increase in the number of people using private healthcare. As of last year, 6.3 million Britons had private healthcare insurance, and 272,000 people paid out of their pockets for said treatment, which just goes to show how many people use private healthcare in 1 year. So, why do people use private healthcare? Well, the number one reason I found why people use private healthcare was not for luxury or anything else. It's simply because of faster access to treatment and specialists. You get to choose what hospital you go to, and you get to choose the consultant who ends up treating you, which is a big deal for a lot of people. You also get private rooms and better facilities, and as I mentioned previously, again, the shorter waiting times for elective surgeries and diagnostic imaging, which can take months in the NHS. This is something I found as well. It just shows the reasons why people ended up choosing private healthcare. And the number one reason, again, was just avoiding waiting times or using private healthcare to access care which is unavailable in the NHS. So this includes some trial treatments for cancer and other stuff. People do believe there is better quality of care provided in private healthcare, but as I'm sure Mr. Sumi would tell you, and from what my experience has been, everyone tries to provide you with the best care, no matter the system you're in, be it private healthcare or the NHS. But this is what people or the general public believes, and that is why some people might end up choosing private healthcare. How much does it cost? Actually, it can vary a lot from place to place, and depending on the consultant you're meeting, a simple consultation could range anywhere from £25 to a specialist consultation, going up to £200. Similarly, MRI scans can go anywhere from 250 to £500. And the most expensive procedure that I could find within the private healthcare system was a single elbow replacement, which can cost you up to £36,000. Obviously, all of this varies depending on the consultant you choose and where you end up having your surgery or your operation. But this just goes to show how much of a difference it can make where if you were to go for private healthcare. And how do you pay for expensive stuff like this? Well, obviously, you can just pay out of pocket, which is through your savings or your earnings. But more often than not, people tend to have private medical insurance. Now, you can have a basic plan, which covers part of the cost or simple tests and consultations, or you can have a comprehensive plan, which covers the entirety of any treatments or surgeries that you might undergo. Some of the major providers that I found people use to get private medical insurance were Bupa, AXA Health, and Vitality. This is another graph that just shows how people paid for private healthcare last year. As you can see, it might be a surprise, but not a lot of people end up having private healthcare. And even if they do, the private healthcare is provided to them through work, whereas approximately 50% of people used their savings or disposable income to actually pay for these procedures. A confounding factor here would be that these people who are using savings or disposable income might not be paying entirely for their surgeries using this, but rather just the consultations. But this just goes to show how many people actually have health insurance and how many people actually just go to private healthcare without using health insurance. I was also really surprised to find out that even as an NHS patient, you can end up going to private healthcare facilities and getting treated in a private clinic because of NHS outsourcing. And another scheme that the NHS has, which is Choose and Book. This is mostly used for orthopedic consultations. So like a knee replacement or a hip replacement. And you can also, on the other hand, receive private care in a lot of NHS hospitals. Or you can have something called hybrid care, which is a combination of being treated within the NHS and through the private healthcare system. There's also a lot of clinical trials and specialized treatments, which purely belong to the private healthcare sector. So sometimes the NHS refers you, or people can move out from the NHS to the private healthcare system to receive those clinical trials and specialized treatments, most commonly, as you might imagine, for cancer treatments. What is the biggest difference between the two? Well, NHS, the biggest factor or the biggest thing that helps you is NHS is free at the point of use, whereas private healthcare is paid for either through insurance or out of pocket. NHS, as you already know, has massive waiting time, sometimes months, even years, whereas private healthcare is way more quicker and there's almost no waiting time to access services, surgeries, or specialists. NHS tends to provide the more standard treatments and procedures, whereas private healthcare can provide like a wider range of treatments, including experimental treatments. Another reason why people might choose private healthcare is obviously because of the private rooms. And as I got to work with the catering team, I saw that there's just better food options and more comfortable environments, whereas the NHS just has those basic amenities, which is the same for everyone. In the NHS, you can be handed on from one consultant to the other, which a lot of patients might not like, and it does not help with building that patient-doctor rapport. Whereas in private healthcare, you get to choose your own consultant, and you get to see them throughout your healthcare journey. So it helps building better rapport and people, yeah. NHS tends to offer emergency care, whereas private healthcare, as I saw in Nuffield, does not have any emergency care um, available. So if there is any emergency, you do tend to have to go to the NHS. So what did I learn from my module? Well, private healthcare in the UK offers a valuable alternative to the NHS for those seeking faster and more personalized care, even though it is more costly, and this could, in the long run, lead to some inequality leading to healthcare. We need to find a way to balance the strengths of both the public and the private system to make sure that there is accessible and high quality care for all. Thank you for listening to me. Are there any questions?